Hi, it's me again. I just want to talk to people that live in the United States of America. I, as a Canadian, a proud Canadian, welcome any United States citizens that would like to move to Canada. But be forewarned, you must have an IQ of more than 6, and you must be able to talk intelligently about the world in general, not just your own country. I've seen a lot of anti-Canadian sentiment on Fox News and different news sources from the United States recently. And I think that people, especially in the United States, need to take a look at their own government and wake up to the fact that they're a bunch of idiots. They forget that Canada is one of your top suppliers of raw materials such as oil, lumber, all sorts of things, natural gas, water, even. And they also forget another thing. The last time that the U.S. talked about kicking our ass, guess what happened? We kicked their ass, went down to the U.S. to Washington, and burned their frickin' White House. And guess what? Canadians may be polite, but when you back us in a corner, we're one of the best fighting forces in the world, next to Britain and a few other countries. I don't even I don't even give the U.S. a great rating on the scale of fighting forces. It's not the soldiers' fault. They don't get good training. I think that a lot of the U.S. citizens are not as stupid and anti-Canadian as their leaders or their media. And yes, I do have relatives that live in the United States, and you'd never hear them talking about stupid stuff like invading Canada or how lucky Canada is that we're allowed to be on the same continent as the United States of America. The United States of America forgets one thing, or I should say their leaders. I don't want to tar and feather everybody with the same brush. There are very intelligent people in the United States. There are very good people in the United States. Unfortunately, they have a real crappy pick for their government, and they get real crappy media down there. People like Ann Coulter. Here's a woman who just doesn't have any idea about anywhere outside of the United States. The same with Tucker Carlson. Here's two great examples of American, and I shouldn't even say that because I'm not an American. I'm a North American. I'm a Canadian. And as such, I have lots to be proud of. First of all, we're not a warmongering nation, we're a peacekeeping nation. But when push comes to shove, and there's an actual war that could affect the world, such as World War I or World War II, Canada is one of the first to jump in there and be on the front lines. Need I remind the U.S. citizens and their government where the U.S. was at the start of World War I and World War II? It took them years, literally years, to get into that conflict. So basically, without Canada, Britain, Australia, a few other nations, all of the U.S. would be speaking German at this point. So, whenever these U.S. citizens think that we're backwards and all we do is dog sled, curl, build igloos, maybe they should start looking at the contributions that Canada has made to the world. We've given them insulin, we've given them the telephone, we've given them just so many things that you can't even mention them all here. What has the U.S. given the world? War, distrust, Um, you know, all these beautiful things that the U.S. has given them. And again, I state that I'm not against the majority of U.S. citizens. Because let's face it, just like in Canada, we get to pick our government, but we don't always have the best to pick from. Just like the U.S., maybe they don't have the best government to pick from either, the best politicians or or that sort of thing. And I hope that our media up here in Canada is less biased and reports news and discusses real issues and doesn't just follow in the footsteps of the American media, who of late seem to be Canada bashing and world bashing. I mean, don't forget, the war on Iraq um, was very tragic. There's a lot of unnecessary deaths, both U.S. and Canada, and both sides, U.S. and Canada, both sides of the border have fought very valiantly in this so-called war on terrorism. But people forget why the war on terrorism was started in Iraq, and that is oil, plain and simple. You have to remember that your government, the Bushes and people like that, own more Middle East property and oil wells than the Middle East does. So, of course, when they see unrest there, they're going to jump right into a battle because they don't want to lose their property over there. And that's fine, but they drag all of us into it. And I hate to say this, but if the U.S. ever did invade Canada, you can bet that the rest of the world would be jumping on our side, and if we needed help, they would help us kick the U.S.'s ass. And I'm not saying this as an anti-U.S. citizen rant. I'm saying this as an anti-U.S. media and anti-U.S. government rant. And I apologize if I offend any good citizens in the U.S. That's not the intent of this video. The intent of this video is just a retort to the U.S. media of late, and maybe a wake-up call. If I wake up even one United States citizen to realize what's going on in their country with their government and the unnecessary death of millions of people, not just U.S. soldiers, but Canadian soldiers, people in Iraq. Um, if I wake up one person to this fact, then that's great. And I just hope that the Canadian-U.S. relations can continue in a friendly way. I'd hate to have to try and protect, and the U.S. would hate to have to protect, the border between Canada and the United States. Because right now it is the longest unprotected border in the world. And we have had such a good relationship between Canada and the United States, and I'd hate to see it thrown away because of some idiot media outlets who can't even bother to research their facts and maybe look at things objectively instead of just jumping on the latest bandwagon because that makes it great, makes it easy to sell. And I just hope that the U.S. and Canada can continue having friendly relations. I'd hate to see it otherwise, but just remember, U.S., that when push comes to shove, Canada will defend its own. And Canada is one of the great nations. to live here, you have to have a fair amount of fortitude, and not just fortitude, but intelligence. And we just don't take things for granted. We try to improve things. And as I said again, I know that I've said it once or twice already. I apologize to any good U.S. citizens that I offend with this, and that's not the intent of this video. And I thank you for listening to my rant.